One thing I've noticed now I'm 44 is that once you get to your 40s, there's this expectation you no longer need help. Worse still, you no longer deserve help. The algorithm, the media, the culture at large assume you've got all your shit together. Wealth, marriage, smart decisions banked years ago, coasting along nicely. But when I hit 40, that simply wasn't the case. There was still a sense I hadn't reached my full potential, hadn't met whatever societal standard for what a man with his shit together was, and I think I'm still figuring out some of that today. But I am better than I was, because eventually I found a way out of it, through pain, 26.2 miles of it to be exact, but that's getting slightly ahead of myself. I searched for hope everywhere, friends, self-help, family, the internet, but there was no content aimed at who I was at this stage of life, and it made me feel like I dropped out the bottom of the culture somehow into some land of exile and irrelevancy. No cheerleading, no rah-rah-rah, no fanfare. I'd assumed that I had my bite of life's cherry, and if I hadn't done the things I was supposed to by now, perhaps I never would. Then came the inevitable depression, something I'd struggled with at different times in my life. The self-questioning, the loss of self-esteem, the paralysis. Sure, I was still alive, but I wasn't thriving. I was comfortable enough to maintain homeostasis, yet spiritually in a state of total freefall. I remember the staff Christmas 2025 photo. Someone handed me a reindeer jumper and I smiled a rictus grin while secretly dying inside. I hated my life. I'd been in the same place for too long and I was smiling through the pain. The famous quote, "Most men live lives of quiet desperation," became the chorus of my lonely thoughts. Around this time I started to ask myself the questions: is it too late to change in your 40s? Is it just managed decline from here on out? I mean, is this it? My health, my wealth, my dating life seemed to be on life support. The played out coping mechanisms of my youth were still to hand. Bars, women, partying, but even those left me feeling hollow. Friendships felt unfulfilling, hobbies I used to love felt like flogging a dead horse. And I'd tried everything outside myself to fill the void, but none of it was working. And it was at that Christmas party 6 months ago that I fully realised how alone I was in all of this. Just me and my struggles. That's when something shifted inside me. Something ineffable yet undeniable. Something painful and yet somehow empowering. I'd crossed the Rubicon in my mind. I'd reached my version of rock bottom. I think there comes a time in every man's life when coasting on the bare minimum becomes excruciating. I looked back at the last 5 years of my life and nothing had changed. The same job, same finances, same weekend nights alone. Time had been passing through my fingers like sand whilst the world was spinning ever faster around me. Now, it seemed, was the time to start flipping the switch. I knew I had to change, except change wasn't going to be a lightning strike or a wave of a magic wand. It wasn't a switch I could flip once and forever be cured. I knew that this was only the first step to really change. And if I wanted to change, I had to go deeper. I had to change my identity. I also realised my identity was just the character I'd built internally to justify my own life circumstances. Some of it had been thrust upon me by my upbringing, the black sheep, the non-finisher, the stuck loser, all of it seemingly against my will. But I realised if I wanted to change, I had to get a new identity. A new one had to be chosen, and the old ones had to be completely discarded. Easier said than done, because periodically in my life I'd mount the motivation to change. But like a game of snakes and ladders, every breakthrough seemed to come with a breakdown that knocked me back to where I started, plus the added baggage of failure and the loss of confidence. The videography business that went nowhere, the personal trainer business that petered out. I'd do well to begin with, but every time I started to win, my subconscious would pull me back to what felt safe and familiar. I also realised our minds want to preserve the status quo. They don't want to risk the fuel it takes to reach escape velocity, and every time I failed and fell back to earth, it confirmed my old identity of being a stuck loser was right all along. After all my failures, it started showing up in all my self-talk, front of mind whenever I pictured who I was. Everything I'd tried, I'd failed at, or so I told myself. So I accepted the status as me being a loser as true. I started to realise that breaking that old identity was going to take some serious consistency, some slow and steady evidence that I was the new me. It was going to take focused energy and sacrificing everything that wasn't serving me. Like catching a rabbit in a hole, it was going to take patience, trusting the process, pushing the boundary of discomfort a little at a time, so my mind could slowly accept this new version of me and slowly acclimatise to it. But of course, old narratives were not going to go away quietly, because shame floods back into your mind at your weakest moments, because memory is emotion dependent, and when I struggled, I heard that voice again. So in that moment, 6 months ago, I asked myself, what does a loser do to stop being a loser? And the answer that came back to me was, they win. In December 2025, I decided all I needed was just one win, just one, something within my grasp, tough enough to be worth the effort, but accessible enough that I could achieve it. So I signed up for my first marathon, the Kent Spring Marathon to be exact. I hate running with the passion of 1,000 suns, so punishing myself with 26 miles of something I despised felt like a fitting punishment for the years of mediocrity. It would also trim some fat and hopefully get me pretty fit. But most of all, it was something that was mine, something to own without relying on anyone else. Also, around this time, I handed my notice in for the job that I felt like just wasn't serving me anymore. I also sidelined the friendships, the girls in my phone I was texting for distraction, and I went all in. Running shoes, gels, schedule, no leaking energy to peripheral nonsense, no alcohol, no socialising, no fun, just the plan. And with only 3 months of training, I completed my first marathon in 4 hours and 3 minutes, 3 minutes short of my A goal. I remember the last mile, legs gone, breath ragged, the watch ticking past every number I'd trained for, and then the finishing line. No fireworks, no movie moment, just me on the verge of collapse, alone, doing the thing I said I'd do. And that was the win. That was enough for me. Not the time on the clock. The fact that for once I didn't quit on myself. In truth, it was never really about the time. It was about who I had to become to cross the finishing line. The discipline, the cold Sunday 2-hour runs without headphones, the last 10 miles when my body screamed at me to stop and my legs felt like they would spontaneously combust. Earlier, I talked about that feeling of dropping out of the bottom of the culture, exiled, irrelevant, put out to pasture. We've all had friends we've tried to help who wouldn't help themselves until we had to give up on them. But here's what I've discovered. When you fully commit to helping yourself, people do notice. The cheerleaders do come back. And the compliments do come back. The universe, God, whatever, smiles down upon you and says, well done, my boy, you did it. And here's the other thing, you no longer need the approval or the delight of the gods. You've filled your own cup. Every kind word still lands, but it no longer lands in that desperate, needy place. It lands in a place that feels complete and whole. And the compliments feel earned and they feel factual. But here's another thing people don't tell you about flipping the switch and quote unquote locking in. Flipping the switch itself is not enough. It's a decision, it's a sentence, it's cheap and it's fleeting. What matters most is what you do after. Mine looked like 26.2 miles I never wanted to run and all the discipline and commitment it took to get there. The reorganising of priorities, the planning, the dedication. It changed who I was, how I was showing up and who people saw when I did. And of course the marathon wasn't the end of the story. Running got me across the finishing line, but it didn't build the body I wanted. Cue me signing up for boxing classes, hitting weights consistently and tracking my calories and continuing down the path I'd laid out for myself. I still wanted that six-pack I had in Thailand in 2018, the one I'd more or less stopped believing I'd see again. I wanted that more than anything. After all the hard work of the last 6 months, I got there. Staring into a gym mirror, I saw a totally different vision of myself. My identity had changed. I had changed. And of course, the journey isn't over. I'm still that 44-year-old guy struggling to better himself, dealing with feelings of shame, self-esteem, and the vagaries of modern living. Still building, still proving it to myself, one training session at a time. But this time I've got evidence. I've got wins stacked up. I've got people believing in me again. I've got this YouTube channel. And truthfully, I feel alive again. Best of all, I know it's just begun. There's more to do, more fun to be had, and more things to discover about myself. And that's it. Thanks for listening to this one and for all the incredible messages on my last video. I read all of your comments and took a lot of inspiration from them. And to all those positive people, this one's for you. I hope this video finds you and it convinces you to try and do the thing that you put off or the thing that you gave up on doing. I'm the Intuitive Mover, and I'll see you in the next edit.